page 656, number 33, we're asked to graph the sequence a sub n equals 2 minus 1 over n. Now you can see I already have it graphed, and you could simply just make a table of values where you're graphing n and a sub n, and you can pick numbers as many as you want. I did up to 10, and you can just substitute and plot. Now I'm also going to show you how to use technology to do this, first in the 84 and then in the Inspire. And there's two ways for each of these to do. One, where you can just generate the sequence and then you can plot it by hand, and secondly is where the graphing calculator will do the graph for you. So starting with the 84, as I said, the first thing you want to do is you're going to create your list L1 and L2, which I thought I had cleared. And you're going to then make a scatter plot of these values. So how do we get the numbers in there that I've had? So the first thing you want to do is you're going to use the sequence command to generate a list of 1 through 10, or you can just type in 1 through 10 on L1. But to show you where that is, you want to hit second stat, and you're going to go to the ops menu, and you can see choice 5 says sequence. So I'm going to choose that, and I've entered in what I want. So I'm just generating a list of counting numbers. So my expression is just going to be k, my counter, and the variable is k, and then it starts at 1, ends at 10, and I'm going to step by 1. Now if you have the older operating system, you won't have this menu come up. When you choose sequence, it'll look like this. You have SEQ and then just the parentheses. So it goes expression, variable, where you're starting, where you're ending, and the step that you're using. Now what I want to do is get this into list 1. So I'm going to hit the store button, and then I hit second 1, which will store it in L1. So as you can see, it just generates my list. Now this is useful if you're going to generate more than 10. Let's say we want to plot 50 or 100 points. You're not going to want to go under list 1 and list all those yourself. So now what we have to do is put the values associated with this sequence 1 through 10 into list 2. So you can simply do it this way. You can use the formula, which is 2 minus 1 over n. So in this case now, it's going to be our list 1. That's where we're going to get all those values. And now, so there is our sequence, and then we're going to say to store it, to store it in list 2. So I hit second 2. And I'm going to hit enter, and there's our values. Now when I look at my list, I'll see there is the table, and I could go ahead and graph those by hand. But what I can do if I want to see it in a graphing calculator is create a scatter plot where you want to make sure you turn the plot on, and the lists for X and Y are L1 and L2. And then when I look at the graph, you can see that this graph matches the one that I have on my paper. So now that's with the one way you can do the 84. Now the other way you can do this, I'm sorry I have that function in there. The other way you can do this is you can generate a graph by changing the mode of the calculator to sequence mode. So you go to mode, and you go down to where function, parametric, and polar is, and we're going to use sequence. And I think this one is a little faster. So now that I did that, I go under y equals. I want to turn the plot off. And then I am going to enter what it tells me to enter. So I want to start at the first term, and then I'm going to enter my formula, which is 2 minus 1 divided by, and now I can just hit the variable term. It'll put the n in there for me. I don't have to find any letters. And now that's all I have to enter. So then I just hit graph, and you'll see that it does look a little different, but it is the exact same points as I've had before. Now in the Inspire, there are two ways as well where you can generate a list of values and plot them by hand, or you can plot them. So if you're going to generate a list of values plot by hand, you want a calculator page open. Then you're going to choose menu, and you're going to go to number 6, the statistics menu, and then number 4, the list operations, and you're going to see number 5 says sequence right there. Now, it's very similar to the way we had it before, where you're going to have to enter the expression, what variable you're using, and then where you're starting, where you're ending. So if you want a refresher on that, instead of getting that term, that function that way, what you can do is you can go in your catalog and you can find sequence, and you can see below that lists exactly what you have to put on: the expression, the variable, the low value, the high value, and how you're stepping, although you don't really need the step. So I can just choose sequence here. I'll put it on the screen. It looks exactly the same. So my expression is 2 minus 1 divided by n, and then a comma, and then my variable is indeed n, and then a comma. I want to start at 1. I'm going to end at 10, and that's what I need. And then I just hit enter, and it'll generate all the numbers, and I can graph those on my paper by hand. Now, the other way you can do it is you can open a graph page, and you can go to menu, your entry edit line, and just like we did for parametric and polar, there is an option for sequence. So I choose number 6, sequence, and I'm just going to choose number 1, sequence. I don't need the custom one. So if you notice, you have u sub n again, so I'm going to have to use n as a variable. So I type in my expression, which is 2 minus 1 divided by n, and then I'm going to tab down and say I'm going to start on the first term, and that's all I need. And then I can just hit enter, and it'll generate the graph for me. So those are the 2 ways you can do a sequence in both the 84